Welcome to Moments with Marianne.
We're here with my special guest, Dianne Emerson. Dianne has written a book here that is very interesting, and she's created the first online forum for victims of psychopaths, and has been doing that for over 18 years. She's been highly involved in the research of psychopaths, and her book is Psychopaths in Our Lives. So welcome to the show, Dianne.
Well, hello, Marianne. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Now, when I picked up this book, it was quite entertaining, and it also was very informative. And I forgot to ask, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, what inspired me was after hearing from victims for over 18 years, I decided that there's got to be a better way to get the message out there about what these people are. And I had a lot of questions. I had a lot of questions in my mind over the years as far as comments that victims had made. And so I started several books to write from the viewpoint of the victims, and then I thought, well, why don't I just, because I hear from psychopaths over the years, why don't I just set out and find 3 good ones to interview so I have, a basis for my analogies, I could find the truth, and decided to show it from theirs, because to date, books have all talked in reference to composite characters, and really that doesn't quite get to it. That doesn't really convey the message. So I felt that by writing, I would be able to capture the words in a clearer sense, to let people see, have you had them in your lives? Are they still in your lives? And if they come into your lives, what do you do?
Well, I think that's probably one of the misnomers, is when people think of psychopaths, they think of all people that are locked up. They think of serial killers and just horrible people that are locked up and not part of society, without thinking, gosh, this could really, these are probably people who are still in society.
Yeah, well, those are the ones that have always interested me, because statistically 1 out of 4 prison inmates are psychopaths. But the interesting part is you'll read statistics saying 1 in 3 in the general population, which is actually kind of a scary high number as it is, but that number was extrapolated from the prison population. So I personally, if you were to ask me, I'd say it's a much higher than that. When you look at the way the world's going and, all these corporate deals and all the chaos in the world, I believe the number is much higher. Okay, and no, not all of them are going to kill you.
Okay. So you did this research based on 3 different psychopaths. 2 had been diagnosed. 1 was self-diagnosed. It's actually worldwide. It's not everyone there's 1 person located in the U.S., I think 1 in the U.K. and 1 in Australia, when you went ahead to write your book. You also, I believe, were in touch with some of the top researchers in this genre.
Yes, Dr. Carl Gacono, he is probably the leading researcher to date. Dr. Robert Hare was the one who developed the checklist for psychopaths, which relied on earlier works. And he's in a semi-retirement stage, and Dr. Gacono is the first person he has officially ever endorsed as the go-to person for a diagnosis. So if you ever need somebody diagnosed, he would be the person to go to.
Okay. And for our listeners, because I think it gets a little confusing sometimes. We hear a lot of different terms thrown out. So what is a psychopath?
Well, what I will do is Dr. Gacono and Cavisto wrote probably the best definition, going through the history of this and that and blah, blah, blah. But I will tell you in layman's terms, which people would probably want to absorb a little bit easier. Historically, people think of psychopaths as somebody who's a hidden killer, Ted Bundy, the BTK killer, those types of personalities. And so a lot of times people will consider sociopath somebody who's probably evil but probably won't kill you. And then they throw in narcissistic. Psychopaths and sociopaths is a genetic. You're either born with it or you're not. Narcissism is a trait that you can develop if you think of selfie sticks. But not all narcissistic personalities are psychopaths, but all psychopaths are narcissistic personalities. And the dividing line, really, to keep it very simple, is they lack a conscience. And they will never grow a conscience. They will just learn how to maneuver within society, but the conscience forms between the ages of 3 and 5 years old, and they're basically genetically born without a conscience.
Okay. So that's not something if one gets in touch with you and say, hey, I want to develop a consciousness, I want to be more caring, that just doesn't happen?
No, it doesn't happen. The ones that I've always found the more interesting are the ones that I interviewed, and those are the ones who will probably never spend a day in prison, but I would probably venture to guess that they will probably ruin more lives in their lifetime than the more prolific serial killer you'll ever meet, because of how they are enmeshed and embedded in society. So they're the ones that I've always had a stronger interest in because, going to find psychopaths in prison would be like shooting fish in a barrel. But finding them in the public is a little bit tougher because of how they're able to blend into society.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and I found your topic very interesting because, I know people that have gone through really difficult work situations where there was a boss that was just out to make life miserable, and I think information is power. So learning how to, identify the traits and then also what to do and what not to do, I think is very important, because if we do have quite a bit of people who are having these characteristics in our society, it's important to know these things.
Well, it's very important to know it, and also one of my goals is to help people in reflection to be able to put the pieces together for things that happen in their life that they never could quite come to terms with, and identify that they were in fact dealing with more than likely a psychopath. And then also the ability to, if you see one coming, what are you going to do? How are you going to get out of the way? Do you think you should challenge them? Do you think you'll ever win? The answer is no. So yes, and they do things. Actually, they're the kind of people that many corporations will seek out, that kind of personality, because they can do things that you or I with a conscience would have a very difficult time doing. Like I know that I couldn't lay off and just to benefit the shareholders, hundreds of employees, and think about them losing their livelihood, their lives, their families, and all that. I'd probably never sleep. So they have found their ways.
And just for the record, we're not saying that people that are in that position are automatically psychopaths. You're just making an example of what it could look like.
Yes, thank you for clarifying that. Yes, because diagnosing them would not be my thing. Yeah, but it gives a path to how they can operate within society, and probably never get caught.
Yeah. Well, and it's really an interesting thing. I mean, we look at just the things that have happened across the U.S. within the last 24 hours. I mean, and again, we're not diagnosing anybody, but I mean, one could speculate with the shooting that happened with that young little pop star yesterday, and then overnight the shootings in Orlando. I mean, we're kind of in a different time, and so having information on this, I just feel, would really help people moving them forward.
Yes, and they do know how to rise into positions of power, so that's what makes it even more harmful to society in general. Like, for example, Ponzi schemes. Nobody ever running a Ponzi scheme, I could really clearly say, probably was not a psychopath. They probably all are psychopaths. So, yeah, they do fit into different roles that I think we're becoming more evolved and aware of.
Mm-hmm. When you went, how long did it take for you to do the interviews of these three gentlemen?
The interviews took place over a few months, and two of them were very scheduled. They would, I'd ask them questions, and they would answer me and wait for the next question. One of them was on a nonstop roll. I ended up with like 80,000 words, which translates to over 300 pages just of his words.
Okay.
The editing,
we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Dianne Emerson, Psychopaths in Our Lives. You can visit her website, and again, that website is psychopaths-research.com. So we will be right back right after this break.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
Have you ever had the sense that your thoughts might actually be doing something? Ancient secrets of manifesting have been masterfully revealed in the award-winning book Manifesting 123 by Ken Elliott. For the first time, the author's experiences and stories in this book describe exactly how your thoughts can create anything. You've been doing this all your life, but it's never been fully explained for you until now. Visit manifesting123.com for more information today. Manifesting123.com.
Ben Wexler is a gifted leadership development and strategy consultant for professionals who want to transform their organizations and careers. Through a uniquely personalized set of processes, participants discover their unique knowledge, how to leverage that knowledge and experience, and then put it all together with a global strategy. You're more valuable, your organization is more valuable, and the change is viral. Contact Ben at 630-881-1074, 630-881-1074.
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here with Dianne Emerson, and we're talking about psychopaths in our lives. And gosh, I found this just to be an interesting topic. I'm sure we're not diagnosing or accusing anyone of having this kind of a diagnosis, but I know a few people that have had situations where they've come across people that just destroy everything in their wake. So, Dianne, now this topic seems to have a really huge stigma around it.
Yeah, it does. It's a kind of topic that the victim ends up being hit from all directions because, for example, when you're dealing with a really well-socialized psychopath, they're going to use a lot of tricks. They're going to use things to pretty much convince other people that you're the problem. They, in the same way in work situations, they use isolation techniques. They use gaslighting. They use things that will put you in a crazy box. And then the more you try to explain to people, the crazier you start to sound because people are attracted to the concept of evil with the proliferation of all the CSI shows and whatnot, but they're very uncomfortable and seem to lack an ability to really see it when it's right next to them or acknowledge that it's there.
Well, I think when we had talked, you had mentioned that in your research, the psychopaths would actually tell people, I'm evil or I'm a psychopath, and people would laugh at them, not really knowing how to respond to that.
Yeah, I heard that from the victims over the years. They would make statements like that, like he told me he has a really dark side. And then I also heard that from the psychopaths themselves, talking about in relationships, how they would come right out and tell people, I have this dark past, and how people would just literally brush it aside. I think one of the keys here is that almost every victim talked about their very first instinct was their true instinct, which was get away. But they, instead of following that instinct, they painted that red flag white. So it boils down to a lot of times listening to your own instincts. If somebody tells you they're evil, what really is funny about that? I mean, really. I mean, it's not something that
you mentioned earlier about gaslighting. What is that?
Well, the term gaslighting actually originated from one of my very favorite movies with Ingrid Bergman and Charles Boyer from 1944-45 called Gaslight. And what the term means is to alter your reality to make it the truth. So, for example, they will do all kinds of things to the end result is all about control. They want to isolate you and control you. So in gaslighting, they'll do all kinds of tricks, from moving your keys around to convince you that, you don't have much of a memory, you can't seem to keep track of things. They want to create a lot of self-doubt in a person and make their evil reality your own reality. So you start to buy into it. And it goes in ranges from small little things, possibly changing the calendar around on your phone or whatever, and convincing you that.
What's the end game with the purpose of them doing that? Is it just to cause chaos? I mean, what's the end game here?
Control.
It's all about control.
Yeah, for example, like one of the guys that I interviewed, if he felt like a breakup didn't happen the way that he wanted it to happen, okay, like he didn't feel like he had control on the end of how that split up happened, he would actually circle back around and re-engage that person again and then just pretty much rip them to shreds before walking away, because it's all about control and it's all about winning.
Okay.
So people will start to think, well, I can hang in there. I can win this situation. And clearly the answer is no, you're not going to, because you can't stay awake late enough to think of some of these things. All the way to the extreme. One of the people I interviewed actually used medications to control his victims. The family members and friends didn't like him very much, so he started medicating their food with antidepressants and mood stabilizers. Yeah, really awful stuff.
That's not good at all. Okay, so how can somebody safely get away from a psychopath?
Well, there's a couple. If I could speak what I would do, if I discovered that I was in a relationship with one, I wouldn't make any kind of grand announcements like, I think you're a psychopath, I'm getting out of here. I would probably follow the techniques that you would use in an abuse situation: secrecy, planning, and organization to get away. If you find that you're working in the same environment with one, get another job or get promoted to another department, because you're never going to win in that situation. You're never going to win. So the best thing to do is to try to look for those signals. And in the book, they laid out a whole pathway to how they actually come up with some of these things that they'll do to maneuver people.
So what are some, if we're going to be able to identify them in like a work situation, relationship, or whatever, what are some of the key things that will have them stand out?
Well, what will happen is, I can give you a real quick example of what Bill did to a woman. He wanted her job. So basically what he did was they're very cat-like in how they can read you, okay? So he knew that this woman would show certain reactions to things and become a little bit louder, hands would move around. So what he did was he got her in a position where people in the area could see, but they couldn't hear what was going on, okay? So then he starts to gaslight her by triggering her to start moving her hands around and showing some emotion, okay? So then what he does is then he goes around and casually talks to the people who saw but didn't hear. And so then he tells them his version of the story. And the really creepy part about it was, so by the time he's done, these people all think they've heard this, okay, but they only saw it. So the way he's able to maneuver the situation, now they all think that they've heard what happened.
Okay, so because it was manipulation of basically the storyline is what's going on to the detriment of somebody else.
Really evil was, so he knew that they would have to have interviews before the person could be fired. So people started getting called in to be interviewed. So they were telling Bill's side of the story. And so what he did, which was even weirder or creepier, was that he told the story in reverse. Okay, so then when she comes in for her interview, she tells the story, but it's in reverse. So now she looks like the liar. So she's fired. See, because they're so convincing that before people knew it, I mean, they thought that they heard everything. They actually told the authorities, that people in higher positions, that they heard this stuff. No, all they did was they saw it, and then he maneuvered them into believing, and that's where they start to gaslight, where you start to believe an altered sense of reality.
Yeah, it's kind of like a smoke and mirrors thing. And so the only way to really get away from them is to truly get away, look for new careers.
Yeah.
So if there's a relationship or a boss or someone that you may suspect that is, for our listeners, that someone that they may suspect is has these traits, the best thing that they can do is really look to put themselves in a better situation.
Well, precisely, because they will dirty the pool about you to a degree that even people that might have known you for much longer than this person did, they have subtle ways of sullying your reputation. So they will bring up things about you that aren't necessarily true, but there's a grain of truth to them, okay? So they will get people, they have a whole organization around them, people who will curry them their favors and tell them information. So they have the whole thing all plotted out. So, yeah, you won't be able to win. You can say, yeah, I'm going to stick in this job, and everybody's going to start to believe me. They're going to see the guy's really this or that. No, it doesn't work that way because that's how good they are.
Are they usually really likable people? Kind of sounds like they are.
Yeah, they put themselves in positions to people feel like they need them. They're very sympathetic appearing. They're not truly sympathetic. And like all of them said, that they're good listeners. The reason they listen so well is because they need to figure out the keys to the vault. So when you're in a relationship, work, or personal, they'll be the best listener on earth. So people walk away and think, man, that guy was just a dream cake. I mean, he listened to everything I had to say. Well, in order to then flip the tables later, they have to have information about you. So they're gathering information
at that time. They're just
they're
getting information that they can use later.
Yeah, they're not going to engage you by coming out and showing you who they are the first time you have dinner with one of them or going for a job interview. They have to pull you over time, and the better ones will do it even better. So, yeah, they're looking for information. Like you might go out with them and they talk about, let's say your father was an alcoholic. So they could spread rumors about, well, last time I was with Dianne, she seemed to kind of go off the edge a little bit. But, I can sympathize because her father was a really bad alcoholic. They plant these things about you to make you appear like you're not the kind of person to be in charge or something. Like you're the kind of person who they want to move aside.
Quite a bit to get to part of their end result,
Well, it's a full-time thing for them, and they think of these things. And so my opinion to people is you'll never fight it because you're not evil. So you're not going to be able to sit awake at night and dream this kind of stuff up. I mean, who could come up with this kind of stuff unless you're evil?
What? And real quick, I mean, we have a few minutes here. What was one of the most aha realizations that you had during the time you were writing this book?
I had a bunch, and I had a couple. It was evil feeling a lot of times. There were times, and that's why I wouldn't give them access to my emotions. I would only interview them in writing, which I think came a lot closer to the truth in any case. When I found out about the medications, that was something that threw me from the curveball from so far to the left that I really couldn't even kind of get my head around it.
What do you mean? About that one? Yeah, that's actually. Yeah. That's what they call criminal. That person should be in jail.
I'm sitting there in the morning drinking my coffee, and I'm reading this email, and I'm like, and my dogs actually came running into the room because I let out just kind of took the air out of me. So, yeah, there were times that when you read their words, there's, and that's been a lot of the comments that I've had from
Well, Dianne, thank you so much for being on the show today. We so appreciate you taking the time to be with us. I know this has been just a passion getting this information out, over 18 years of research that you've done here, interviews, amazing book. And our listeners can go to psychopaths-research.com. Your book's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and Apple. And thanks for being on the show today.
Well, thank you very much, Marianne. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. And for all of our listeners out there, I'd like to thank you for tuning in today. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Thursday, Friday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.